Hey guys, it's Mark Anderson, construction worker turned zero DT hedge fund manager. Today we're going to go over some Q&As I got from subscribers, so tune in and I look forward to answering them. In regards to slippage and measuring that, so the bid ask basically can just spike continuously. So it could, even if you have your stop loss order at $3, it can go from $3 to $4 instantaneously. This is what's called jump risk and why options are so great at hedging. And that's why as selling options, we basically have edge because we're taking on the risk of that price potentially jumping. So in regards to slippage, you're just going to get what the market gives you. Everything is done on the CBOE. There's only one exchange, and the price we pay is the price we pay. The things you can change is you could use a different trigger on the bid. You could use a different trigger on the ask. You could use it on the mid. You can use it on the last. And the whole goal is just what most closely resembles the actual back test of that. So I basically look at it that the slippage is just a cost I pay. It's in reduction of basically what my P&L is, and it's random how it can spike. So what I'm basically doing is I'm just ensuring when I get the data of what my expected price was versus what it is. I always want to be off of bid because I want to get what the market is actually bearing. And if that goes up over a period of time, I just change the metrics on my back test. I always beat it up more than that, but there's not a real way to improve your slippage other than the trigger of what the order is to the market maker. So if we're testing on national bid best offer in trades, that would be like a last because that's the worst possible trade. Options Omega is usually slightly more beat up because you may not be the person that's filled at that trade. But you just factor in whatever your actual trading is in your back test because that's the price you pay. And then that's ultimately what you're going to hold yourself accountable to it. So tracking your slippage is just what happens, but it's making sure that it's correct with your assumption that you have in the back test. And that's basically what tracking slippage is. It's just whatever you assumed in the back test is very similar to real life. I'd like to look at that kind of over a monthly period. So if I went a month, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and the slippage was higher over a couple hundred trades than what I had in my back test, I will just adjust to my back test. But the main thing with this is if you're trading a test that has like a $6 expected value, and now you're getting 5 cents more slippage, that trade no longer works. So I definitely like to avoid trades that only have a $5 expected value. I'd like to find more trades that have $30, $40, $20 expected value because that pans out a lot better. Yeah, so in regards to long vol, I probably buy about 1.5% of my portfolio in long vol a day, which I know some people can think is kind of ridiculous, but options at very worst are basically break even. On the call side, they have a positive expected return. On the put side, they don't. And that's just because of the demand from the market. So the way to look at long vol is that you're just paying kind of a tax that you won't blow up. And I think it's ridiculous that people pay 25% tax to the government. And you just pay it every time. Whereas if you take like a 2 to 3% drag on your portfolio, you can basically ensure you won't blow up. And this is literally money you would have given to the government, and it's going to help you compound more. Because if you don't take drawdowns, a 10% drawdown needs an 11% return to get back to even. You're just going to compound faster and faster. And this matters indefinitely more with zero DT. And also there's like black swan risk, which is something massive that could happen that could potentially wipe you out. And the only thing that will actually protect you from black swan risk is being net long units. So if you're trading 20 short options and you have 25 long options, if we were to go down 5%, you're going to end up being fine. And this is kind of the whole fragility around zero DT is like you're taking such massive leverage. It's like with $100,000 account, you could trade like a 10 lot, which is technically $5 million of leverage. Granted, the entire American stock market won't go to zero in a day, but it's you gotta pay for it and you gotta hedge, because that is valuable money you could potentially lose, and you're already paying in taxes. So I don't know why you wouldn't do it to yourself to, basically keep yourself in business. It's like insurance. So there's risk in theory and there's risk in practice. So risk in practice would be if we have a $1 option in the market and we're $100 wide and we have a stop loss at 3x, our max risk is a function of our credit, $1 to 3 credit. So $3, basically $2 is our risk. However, in regards to that $2 of risk, the market could potentially go down 100 points or something were to happen to the exchange. Granted, that's never happened, but that is the risk you are taking, is the order could not go through ever, or the exchange could go down. So your risk is technically blowing up potentially. However, it's intraday market liquidity and that can get you there. So the way I look at that risk is, if you can do 40% a year using, let's say, 30% of your buying power, the compounding benefit of that really pays off rather quickly. Like last month, I did like 8.9% return. However, I'm just over 40% for the year. And if we looked at the initial account balance, basically that compounded from the initial balance on January 1, I did 11.09% that month. So we basically got a 2% edge from compounding. So the whole point is that you need the size that you could basically come back from a drawdown, 20, 30% of your buying power, if something were to blow up. Because if you're using 80% of your buying power, even if that figure was you made 8% and then you made 16, if you take a 80% drawdown, you need like a 700% return to get back to even. And the best way I like to describe that is then going back to the hedging is like, if you have any chance theoretically, and I think that stop losses are technically a theoretical worst case scenario that it could get you out, you have no edge. So if there's any chance you could take some massive drawdown, you have no edge. So that's why I think using about 25 to 30% of your buying power is responsible, because if you take a 25% drawdown, you basically only need a 33% chance to get back to even, which is an 8% difference. And then on top of that, I use hedges with only using that much buying power. And you've got plenty of time. It trades every day. It's just capping yourself on that earlier on. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you have any more comments or questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. I'll be making these videos for Q&A every week or two. If you could share this with anyone, it is the highest act of appreciation. Like, comment, subscribe below.